kind of role did Ashley have editorially in making the film?
So we had complete artistic control with this film. She had brought us the film, but that was right after we had gotten back from China. When we were about to leave for Russia, she sprung a contract on us. And so in that contract, she had wanted artistic control, and that's absolutely, for us, unacceptable. That's an advertisement and paid work that you decide to embark on, and something that we're not interested in. So for us, the only control she had was that she was able to, she was unable to have libel, like anything defaming a specific company or a specific agency. But the irony behind that is she censors herself. She never outs anyone. So we never had an issue with the editing. She did see the film right before it screened at Toronto, and the comments that she gave were that she didn't want the fact that she works at Elite in the film, which most people outside the industry may or may not know what Elite is. So that was an easy withdrawal. And then she felt like the way that Japan was put together was a negative portrayal, and she felt like her experiences were positive. But what's interesting about that comment is that you look at her personal diary footage, and that's completely the opposite of what her experiences were. So I felt after we had shown her the film and the way that she responded, she felt like the end it could start at the end and go to the beginning. It would be the same film. That we really accurately portrayed her as she is, which is someone who is in complete denial and not able to look or take a hard look at how they're implicated in an industry or participant. So that's a long answer, but that answers your question, I hope.
It's an ethically and morally challenging film. There's lots of moments where you see this vulnerable young girl, reaching out for help or needing help, where you see your main character actually say things which you, as an audience member, sometimes you want to question or challenge her. I want to ask you about your role as filmmakers in both inserting yourself into the film and holding back, and how you made those decisions.
The way we edited the story is the way we also experienced it, the way Nadia experienced it, and the way Ashley experienced it. And so we're trying to portray it that way so that you as an audience will also experience it and ask these questions. What's going on here? Something's kind of off. Should I intervene? Why are they here? Why is she here? And so we're hoping that the audience will ask those questions and then walk away at the end wondering, what would they have done as well? But also, understand the bigger picture as well.
Were those conscious decisions while you were actually in the moment, or was that you're seeing things in retrospect?
Well, I mean, in the moment, we didn't know really what was going to happen. I mean, you're pushed away, but you work in the film for 4 years and you don't go away. So you push back, and you can just kind of step in the middle of a situation with the camera and record it, and as delicately as possible. But you also have to have persistence. And so if Nadia is going to be in trouble, there's no way we're going to film that. We're going to intervene and provide assistance. But we're not going to put that in a movie. So those situations were both conscious in the moment, but also conscious, when we were done shooting. And we did follow-ups. We hired someone to go to Russia. We went to Russia 3 times as well. I mean, to meet with their family and with Nadia. We hired someone to go there and find out more of what was going on, to debrief, to find out why she went back to Japan. And we went back to Japan to find out how she got there. Then they sent her to China, and then Taiwan, and back to China. And it was just too much to keep up with, and it was becoming too expensive to keep following up.
Rachel, you were and still are involved in the business, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about your experience both working in Japan but in the business more broadly, and how Nadia's story, or is this a common story that you've seen in the business?
It's kind of hard because every girl has a very different story, yet there's many elements that happens to Nadia. I mean, just going away from home, the depression she goes through, certain things that she doesn't understand and people not explaining it to her, financially being told one thing and something else going on. That is common for all models. Not all girls do start traveling internationally at 13, yet most girls start getting scouted at the age of 13, 14, which kind of is a bit weird, thinking that these girls are being scouted to become women's model. And it's just like, what are we projecting as being the image of the perfect woman in our society? You know, that's just kind of, as the public, you know, why does it affect us, and why this story is actually in our daily life. But as a model, I mean, I've traveled for almost 10 years now internationally. I lived in Japan for about a year altogether. I was in Japan when Nadia was in Japan. I've met Nadia, I was going to casting with her. But Nadia is, one girl that was there in 2009. But I've met many girls before and after that were 12, 13, 14 years old girls in Japan. But I mean, they're 12, 13, 14, 15 in the US, 16, 17 even, I think is too young. But in the US and Europe, all around, and in the magazine, yes, there's girls that they keep modeling at 18, 20, and they're in the magazine, but, you know, I'm a very old model at 26 years old.
Sara and Jenna, the model lines, there's a couple of moments in this film where there's these kind of shocking clauses that are exposed in the contracts, well, at one point Nadia is 13, and then suddenly she's 15. This is something you guys work on with the model lines. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and how it relates to working with, particularly with younger models?
Essentially, the modeling industry is unregulated. Models are one of the only groups of performers that don't have a union. So, you know, you look at actors or musicians or dancers, and they all have strong unions protecting them. Models don't have anything like that. And on top of that, models are independent contractors. So in the US, the rule of law in terms of workplace standards basically doesn't exist for us. There's no, you know, minimum wage. A lot of sexual harassment law does not apply. And then, of course, you're dealing with a labor force of children. So you're dealing with a very vulnerable demographic. And so the model lines, we just launched last month, and we're working to give models a voice in the American fashion industry. Certainly, the extreme youth of many of these girls is a problem. And I think maybe one of the most disturbing scenes in the film for me was seeing that it was some sort of video reel of Nadia posing very seductively. And, you know, this is a 13-year-old child. And I think a lot of people, when they look at images of models, they don't really stop to consider how old these kids are and how vulnerable they really are. So our first initiative was to set up Model Alliance support. We're working with two unions, AGMA, the American Guild of Musical Artists, and Actors Equity, and we've basically established a confidential grievance service for our members, models who've experienced sexual harassment or any kind of abuse.
The question of responsibility is a really tricky one in fashion, especially because I think the modeling industry has traditionally played its cards very close to its chest, so that consumers purposefully don't know where these girls come from, where the images come from, how old they are, whether they're in school. You know, that messes with the glamour of it all. It doesn't make you want to buy the perfume if you're suddenly worried that girl might be 15 or 13, as the case may be. I don't know. That being said, I mean, I personally question the wisdom of sort of consumer-directed fashion campaigns, because I feel like decades of consumer pressure and boycotts and letter writing has been focused on the fashion industry, and that all of that hasn't really changed the prevailing imagery that we see in the magazines and on the billboards, and it hasn't really led to better outcomes for the women who consume that imagery. It hasn't led to fewer eating disorders or, you know, really any measurable impact at all. I feel like if we tried to put more into empowering models themselves and ensuring that they were healthy and that they had more of a voice in their work and that they could be a little bit older when they began their careers, that would naturally, as a consequence, have the effect of changing the kinds of imagery that we see and of perhaps even ensuring like a broader range of body types and everything like that.
For us, the surgery scene is interesting and has sort of a bigger metaphor because her industry is evaluating bodies, right? Body parts. And this body or matter is growing within her and wanting to come out. And so I think it was sort of a poetic metaphor that we were really going for.